Welcome to your weekly space of self-indulgence, discovery, and community. I'm your host, Mariah, here to guide you through insights, tips, and stories. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the Self-Indulgent Podcast. Before we get started, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification button so that you never miss an episode. And if you are following us anywhere else where you enjoy listening to your podcast, give us a follow so you don't miss out every Thursday morning. Okay, I'm really excited for this episode. I'm going on vacation soon. I'm going to visit my bestie for spring break. And I wanted to pre-plan episodes, right? Like I typically create episodes week to week, which I know is dangerous. But that's kind of how life has been. And so in this case with going on vacation, I wanted to not skip a week, but to instead pre-record. And I did not have a topic until this morning. So this is very like on the fly, but it actually feels very, very authentic. And I mean, all of my episodes, I think, feel authentic for me anyway. But it just felt right. It felt good. I'm vibing. This is what I want to talk about today. So we are talking about life pivots. We are talking about embracing the season that you're in, identifying the season that you're in, the cycles of life, and we're kind of like an update, like a life update, like where I'm at, how I'm seeing things, where I'm moving forward to. And I want to hear yours. I want to hear where you're at. Maybe after this episode, at the end, you'll be inspired, or maybe look at things maybe a little differently, but tell me where you're at in the comments below. So for the last 2 to 3 years, I've created some form of a vision board. Last year I made one in December, and you may be surprised to know that I did not make a vision board this year until March 1st. Why is this surprising? Because in previous episodes, we've talked about goal setting and planning and just being very I think intentional in life. I've talked about getting away from the new year, new me mindset. And instead, I ended up actually coming out with an episode for ins and outs of 2024 for myself. And at the time, it did feel good to be able to put that out there. I did enjoy the ins and outs of 2024, but it wasn't really any goal planning or goal setting in general. It was more of here's what didn't work and here's what did work, and how I might want to reframe or reshape what didn't work. So that reflection really did kind of feel good, but I never necessarily set an intention for the year. And some of this did have to do with some news that I received that kind of changed realities for me a little bit. So I was not in a place to make my vision board. I did not want to make my vision board. I was over it. I was not feeling it. I really just didn't really feel ready to. It wasn't even oh my God, everything sucks now. I hate it here. I mean, I felt that at some point, but that wasn't why I didn't create my vision board. It didn't feel right. I needed to move through what I was experiencing first. I'm also a spring and summer girly. So I really tend to bloom April to May through September. So with all of that being said, and then finally making my vision board on March 1st, which was not timed. It just so happened to be March 1st when I did it. It all brought up the topic of adaptability, flexibility, and meeting yourself where you're at. So I'm here to once again debunk this new year, new me, but in a different way. That whole mindset, that energy, that vibe. I'm here to debunk it in a different way, because we all move through different seasons of our lives at different times, and you never know when you're going to need to pivot. You just don't know when you're going to need to pivot. This is why being present with yourself and listening to yourself is so important. I know you're tired of hearing me say that, but I promise that will not be the last time I say it, because I'm going to reinforce to you how it applies to everything. It applies to everything. That's why it comes up so often. And so I've noticed in listening to myself and being present with myself that I have cycles during very specific times of the year. So rather than forcing a new mindset and goal for the year in December, I waited until I knew I was ready, or rather that I was in a space where I could at least explore where I want to go over the next 6 months or so, given the cycle that's coming up for me. Knowing that these are my better months that are coming up, it was just important to at least be able to explore it, because I was not in an exploratory phase in December. I was not. I was tired, was not ready to explore. So I noticed that the winter months are definitely a time of reflection, some introversion, processing, even like some trial and error sometimes. Like sometimes I'll get the bug to like, I guess when I'm in these lower energy periods, I think I feel the need to do something different, because I think innately in my being, I'm a high energy person. However, that does not mean I'm high energy all the time. So I think when I'm in that period of reduced sunlight, intense school, and hour changes, like the cold, like I think I naturally go into this different phase that is at a like lower energy level, and that's not always comfortable for me. And so sometimes the winter does have some trial and error in there, just because I can't sit still. Like I'm very aware, because it's like a time of reflection, processing, introspection, introversion, that I witness things, I realize things, and then I want to take action. But I'm learning to hone that in a little bit, right? But sometimes that does include a trial and error. Often it is lots of error, but that's okay. So I think that the shadow parts of myself are showing up during this time, and I haven't quite figured out how to contend with them. I think that I'm in a place where I'm starting to recognize that pattern, and kind of recognize when that version of myself creeps up, these like other aspects of myself that I am not as comfy with, right? So I haven't quite figured out how to contend with them, like accept them fully, but also remain true to my discipline and routines that I need to be the best version of myself, even during those times. Like, so I think that's like my goal and desire. I think after this last period, like my hope is that in this next cycle, to be able to kind of, accept those pieces of myself, accept how I kind of show up during that time, but also still stick to the principles and the lifestyle as far as like routines that I value and find very important, that are harder to do when you're at a like lower energy level, because what I want to be able to do is to not necessarily reverse a bunch of progress made, right? So I think one of my shadow selves that tend to come up is like a self-sabotaging version of myself, where like I'm actively choosing things that I know don't necessarily align with the higher version of myself, right? And I know, like I'm actively aware, and I'm still choosing it. So like working on whatever the hell that's about, just to have better balance, right? Like I'm not going to be perfect 100% of the time, and I want to be able to meet myself where I'm at and accept those parts of myself, but I also don't want it to be the extent of self-sabotage. So I want to normalize shifts that we experience throughout the year, and to maybe not confine ourselves so hard to all the things that we wanted to do in 2024 or the next year. So like my new year does not start in January. It does not. I've come to that conclusion and realization that my new year does not start in January. It just doesn't. It's taken me a long time to accept and understand that. I do, however, appreciate some of the thinking behind like the new year, like checking in on things that you want for yourself, what's working and what's not working, who feels right to continue this journey of life with, how can I refresh and start anew. These are all very important things to do and think about for ourselves, but it doesn't have to happen in December and January. And I actually want to take it a step further and say that it should probably be happening multiple times a year, like way more than once. I also want to emphasize it may not even be a feeling that it's time to kind of pivot, be intentional, kind of hunker down on what you're looking for in the next few months. Like when I finally did it in March, I just knew in December and January it wasn't gonna happen. I wasn't doing it. And it wasn't necessarily that like I just felt like doing it in March. What happened first is that in February, I said to my friend in February that, oh, I think I'm ready to make my vision board now. Like, I think I feel okay to do that. But it wasn't like I jumped on it and just did it and scheduled it and planned it. And no, I just put out there that I don't feel as opposed to it as I did a few months ago. But I didn't just sit down to do it. Like, I didn't necessarily have a theme or plan. Like, I wasn't fully motivated with this brilliant idea or this way that I wanted to show up. Like, it didn't hit me like that. my themes and goals weren't just there before I sat down to do it. And I'll talk about what those themes are later that I did end up coming up with. But I do think that maybe my being and my spirit kind of knew where I was headed before I did, because, I was on the phone with my best friend and they had asked me, oh, like, so did you end up making it? When are you going to make it? And I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do it now. I keep forgetting about it. It's not that I'm not doing it. It's just I've been busy and I just haven't been thinking about it, even though I said that I'd be open to it. So while we were on the phone, I just decided to go on Pinterest, start with one thing that I wanted in the new year or over the next however many months. And so I started with the one thing, and then it just led to the next thing, which led to the next thing, which led to the next thing. And before I knew it, there was a story there. Like, there was a theme there. There was a clear intention theme for where I wanted to go in these next few months, or what I felt was approaching. And once I saw all the pictures on the collage, the season came to me and I was able to tell the story of where I wanted to go. Like, it all kind of made sense, right? So sometimes you have to kind of just start with something and kind of let yourself go with everything you want for yourself. I also want to say that you are never behind. I think it's really intimidating to see all of the new year, new me stuff and the goals and the direction videos at the beginning and the end of the year, especially if you're like me and you're not feeling like your best self during those months specifically. But please know that you are never behind. You're not going to miss out on anything or opportunities for yourself. I think it's just really important to acknowledge where you're at and what season you're in. If it starts to feel like you're behind, or if you find yourself comparing yourself to others, like, rather than going down that rabbit hole because this is not your best time of year, it would be, I think, better and more productive and helpful to you to just recognize like where you are, like what's going on for you right now, where you are, and just know that this is like just a period. It's part of a cycle. It's a season, whatever you want to call it. Just being intentional about how you can support yourself. If you have goals and things that you want in life, but you're not executing on them right now, that is also okay. Beating yourself up about it is not going to help at all. I was listening to Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast, and he was talking about when we set goals for ourselves. We typically tend to like not actually move through like all of the phases of what it would take to kind of succeed in something that we wanted to do. And oftentimes we either are trying to jump to execution phase, or we're stuck in like the research learning phase. So just like in seasons and cycles of life, there's also phases of goal setting and working on a project. There's the learning and researching phase. People tend to get stuck here when they're afraid of failure or just feel unworthy and just still feel unknowledgeable and just not like a master, and they want to know everything to feel secure. Getting stuck in this phase, though, is robbing yourself of the ability to learn through mistake and error and then also robbing yourself of the ability to show yourself that we can keep trying and that we can learn along the way. And so then once you can like kind of do that and start to play around and move into a trial and error phase, that's like the experimentation phase. I think I like to look at this phase as like playing, building adaptability and flexibility. I think it's really important to embrace this phase and have fun with it so that you are not burnt out in the long run. And then there's the execution phase where you're going to put everything you've learned into practice and be consistent and disciplined in it, taking everything that you've learned from trial and error. And if you want to continue to grow, to learn, to improve and evolve, then you're going to have to be okay with constantly going through that cycle over and over again. You are going to have to go through that cycle if that is what you want to do. So maybe you are in the learning, researching phase for 3 months. Maybe you're in it for a year. The point is to be intentional, pay attention to your fears, doubts, frustrations, and just periods where you feel stuck so that you can work with them, embrace them, figure out what you can do during these times when you feel this way and what you can't do during these times when you feel this way. That's just not going to happen. This could, though, also be a time when things are harder that could inspire a pivot, especially if you know yourself and what is and isn't working. I encourage you to lean into pivots when you've given yourself a real shot. You've been consistent and disciplined in trying to reach a particular goal or desire, because we also don't want to just give up too soon, especially on things we're passionate about. I think a great way to tell if it's time to pivot or not is to ask yourself, are you pivoting out of fear of disappointment or out of fear and disappointment, or are you pivoting out of excitement, passion, reflection, trial and error? I think that's just like a better way to tell what's going on. Okay, so I wanted to share my vision board and kind of what I ended up coming up with that kind of aligns with all this and feels very different than the vision boards I've kind of made in the past. It's here, and I'm kind of just going to talk about some of what's there and what it means to me. So this is the theme and kind of the vision for however many months it resonates with me, right? So like, I'm not even going to say, like, I think I have that it's like my 2024 vision board. That's how it's saved. But really, like, the more I think about it, especially after this conversation, it's really just until it no longer resonates. So first, I want to either join some type of community or create some form of community that brings women of color together, particularly Black women. I think that this is just something that I'm lacking personally. And so if I can't find it, then, you know, my friend very much is like, why not create it? I think you have the ability and capacity and energy to create it. So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see how that comes to fruition. I want my own cozy corners in my house where I can read and just explore and learn through reading. I really want places and environments that can foster and develop like my desires, lifestyles, and habits. Like I want some form of devotional space. I've been getting into crystals, so like they will likely be set up there also. I'm very excited about that. I want to grow this podcast, and I want to touch more souls. I want to engage more and have conversations with you all. I also want to start reaching out to guests for the podcast. I want to take like my own personal like hygiene and physical forms of self-care more seriously and slow down in them. I think for me, they can feel tedious and like a chore, but I really want to work on reframing that and really just like cater to myself and take my time doing that. I want to continue meal prepping. And I also want to start having fun with recipes and try new ones. I finally got over the avoidance and the hurdle I had about cooking. Like I hate cooking. I did not like cooking. Like I just did not want to do it. But I want to take advantage of the season that I'm in with all the cooking and meal prepping that I've been doing and see if like I can really make it fun and really enjoy it and create a lifelong positive relationship with it. I want to rediscover my sense of fashion and start to like play with accessories and just getting dressed and ready for myself. I really am a firm believer in when you look good, you feel good. And when it's based in yourself, not when you want to look good for somebody else. Like, I think that's a lot of pressure, but I know that when I think I look good, I feel good. So I want to really prioritize those forms of expression. I am still a gym girly, if you couldn't tell. I'm going to the gym after this, so that is why you see me in my workout gear if you're watching. I'm very strong in my habit of going to the gym, but I want to be more disciplined in my reaching some of my strength and physique goals. So I don't know if you've noticed, but there's like a theme here of being more present with myself and really just taking care of myself from all areas. So nutrition, physical, mental, emotional, community ways, socially, but in very playful, soft, slowing down, explorative ways. Like that's what I think this season is going to be. I really do want to meet myself where I'm at, but also have fun with that. So then I want to share some of my quotes and words that are on my vision board that like really resonated with me when I saw them originally. The first one is, I haven't met all of me yet. I really like this. I really, really, really like this because it emphasizes this explorative nature that I want to lean into, and it leaves so much space open for growth, change, leveling up. Like that's kind of how that speaks to me. The sky's the limit. Like there's no, you know what I mean? Like I haven't met all of me yet. Like there's going to be so much to come from me. You know, the next one is, your only limit is your mind. I'm trying to be more present and in my like just do it or just try it phase of life, because living in my mind has never helped me. Living in my mind, overthinking, like it's just it always becomes obsessive. And so I'm really trying to lean into leaving the mind behind. I just came up with that. That rhymes. Huh. Is that too corny to put on a t-shirt? If it's not too corny to put on a t-shirt, you heard it here first. Remember that. Next is, connection is the energy that is created between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment. So I've been in this period, in this cycle, over the last 2 years where I'm being very intentional about my circles and the energy that I'm looking for in interpersonal relationships. I crave connection, like what was just described. Feeling seen, heard, valued, give and receive without judgment. Like I crave this connection and I have so much of it to give, but I've learned that I am only willing to devote this type of energy to those who can seriously like match it, truthfully, who want to go on that ride with me. I talked all about some of this stuff in my last episode on reciprocity, so go check that out after you finish this. The next one is, and excuse my language, but it was the quote. It wasn't me. It was the quote. Maybe I'm not too sensitive. Maybe you're just a dickhead. If you know me, this is very Mariah coded. My friend thought I came up with it, but I did not. It found me on Pinterest. I did not come up with that quote. But this really is just about like honoring my feelings. I've been very, very intentional about how I engage with others. And I try to be very thoughtful now. Like I really, this has been a huge focal point for me. So I have zero time for gaslighting or the dismissing of my feelings. I'm on meds. I've done the work. I'm in therapy. I'm still doing the work. So I am open to feedback and constructive criticism, but do not call me too sensitive. Because that ain't it, Chief. It's not it. The next one is, taking care of yourself is productive. I love this. I think if I could sum up this whole shebang in like a sentence, it would probably be close to that. I think this relates to my wanting to take care of myself, my hygiene, my self-care, and kind of meeting myself where I'm at and being playful. And if all I can do today is wash my ass and my hair maybe and put on a face mask, then that was productive. Taking care of myself is not only productive, but it is necessary. And I'm committed to making it a vibe. And finally, there was this word, soft life was the word, and then the definition was under it. And so it said, a life of ease, peace, comfort, and intentional happiness. It does not require struggle, love, stress, and distress. It consists of mutual relationships, clarity, and self-care. That just summed up a lot of what I've just said. But I'm also not unrealistic, right? Like, I'm not sitting here saying nothing will ever go bad. I'm never going to feel upset or mad. Like I just told you, I go through cycles. However, I'm tired of the shit being so hard. Like I am moving into a softer era, and I'm okay with that. Like if you're watching this on YouTube, right, I'll put this picture of this cat that's on my vision board here because I think it kind of represents the vibe that I'm going for, like what I'm looking for in this season coming, approaching, moving to. So at the end of the day, I really just want to embrace myself and let go of what is just not for me and just continue to choose myself. I'm not forcing anything or driving myself nuts over trivial things in this season. I'm not doing it. Take it somewhere else because I'm not doing it. I just want to relax, meet me where I'm at, and allow myself to live in it without tearing myself apart or tearing myself down. I know that I'm not always going to be in a great mood, but I can at least stay true to my feelings, acknowledge them, feel them, and then move accordingly. Okay. So I did put on my stories and stuff this morning that I kind of what this episode would be, and if anybody had any thoughts or something was on their mind or questions or just anything, especially in the timing of life and seasons. And I did put it up this morning right before having to film this episode. So I did get a response though, and I wanted to talk about it. This person said, 1 year of my mom's passing is coming up, and I've been in my head a lot, in all caps, with the days leading up to it. That is extremely difficult. And I don't think that we all recognize enough how like something life changing and altering, especially grief, how that can change things. I think coming up on a year, and it's like, I'm sure like your body can kind of feel it, like your spirit can feel it, like because it was such an impactful moment, and it's almost like your body knows, like your spirit knows. So like a lot of those thoughts and feelings come up. It's important to acknowledge that, like, and I learned this in a book too that I recently was reading. It was a fiction book though. But it gave perspective of like when things like death and grief and just like huge life impacts happen, you know, this is new life. Things will never be the same. There is no going back. Like this is new life. That's hard. That is extremely hard, especially when the loss of a mother, like that is a part of your core, like a part of identity, right? Like, and so how do we move through and work through like these shifts and changes, right? And still show up for ourselves in the seasons we're in and just being there. So I'm so sorry for your loss. And I hope that you give yourself the space, the time to really like feel what you're feeling, and the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you can continue to move through. And you know, there's never forgetting, there's never, like, things will not be the same. That's the gravity of the loss. And so I hope that you can find some power and peace as you move through this difficult time period. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing, and hopefully this touches somebody else. I want to wrap up today's episode with reflection questions on, are there any cycles in your life that you recognize. Like if you can think about periods and patterns that you've noticed during like specific times of years, what does that look like? Have you noticed it? What maybe have you noticed? Share it down below. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I hope that you got something out of this, that hopefully like some pressure was relieved. You know, like things are never always going to be perfect. It's always going to get hard. We all are going through different things. And so I hope to engage with you all more, kind of like I did today, hopefully with more of you, so that, you know, we can support each other as well. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow us on any of the places that you listen to your podcast. Download the episode, that really helps. And have a blessed and intentional week.